Hello guys, welcome to Zenomatics. In today's video, we're going to have a look over angle properties. Now we know that O-level students are really dreaded with how many angle properties are there, which ones are more important, which ones are less important. So I've made this video to focus upon the really important properties which are an essential if you're taking an O-levels maths exam. So let's start with them. These are really interesting and I've broken them down into like really interesting shapes as well so that you can recognize them in your exam easily. So number one are the Z angles. I'll be talking about their official names along, but first of all, let's stick to how they look like. So first of all is the Z angles. Now, the Z angles are only possible if you have a pair of parallel lines. If you do not have parallel lines, you cannot have Z angles. In a parallel line system, if you have a Z being formed, just like this, the internal angles of that Z are always equal. The internal angles are always going to be equal. So if this is angle A, this is angle A. These are called Z angles, definitely due to the shape that they make. Similarly, a reverse Z is also possible in this diagram. If you try to make a Z from the other side, bring it down and go to the other side, now we can see there is another angle B which can also be made equal to this one. These are called Z angles and their official name is alternate angles. So when we refer to them, these are alternate angles. Of course, the exact same thing is possible if you have the line cutting the other way, if the slant line is the other way around. So for example, you can make a Z like this and we can clearly spot an alternate angle or a Z angle. It is making a Z shape. Or you can do it the other way around if you have the Z in other direction. Let's make it with a lighter color. Okay, so where this blue Z is going, and now I can spot that this angle and this angle is making a Z. So these Z angles are basically alternate angles, and these are only possible if you have a pair of parallel lines. So be really careful while you're making Z angles, because there is a huge problem. Students start making Z angles in positions where there are no parallel lines, so that would be absolutely wrong. So be very careful while making a Z. You have to be sure that you have a pair of parallel lines, otherwise those angles will be wrong. The second angles that we have are also only available if you have a pair of parallel lines. These are called C angles, and just like their name, their shape is a bit like a C. So I'll show you in a bit how that C looks like. Now, in a parallel line system, if there is a line cutting through, you can see there is a C being made over here. There is a C that you can see shape, you can see. If I name this angle A and name this angle B, the property that C angles have is if you add them together, they are equal to 180. In a C angle system, if you add these C angles, the internal angles of a C that are made, they add up to 180. Similarly, this C can also be made in the other direction as well. So if I make a C in the opposite direction, I know it's a bit weird looking C, but if you put a C like there and if you place some angles C and D over here, so C plus D will also be equal to 180. Again, C angles are also only available if you have a pair of parallel lines. The official name for C angles is called supplementary angles. Supplementary angles. Okay, so this is again also possible if your C is acting in the opposite direction. So for example, if these are two parallel lines and there is a line cutting through, these internal angles, these interior angles will make a shape of a C. So we know that A plus B will be equal to 180 because they are supplementary. Similarly, on the opposite side, just like before, the C would always give you the same property. And now C plus D is again 180 degree. So C angles are supplementary angles, and supplementary angles are basically the interior angles in a parallel line system. So if you add up the interior angles on a parallel line system, the answer is always 180 degrees. The Z angles are always equal, and the C angles add up to 180. Now there is another really interesting property of F angles. Again, this one also belongs to the parallel lines property. Now, it is not possible if you do not have a parallel line system. Now, if you have a parallel line system and there is a line cutting through, I want you guys to imagine a letter F over here. So it's not really difficult. It's quite easy. Once I make it, you guys will be able to visualize it. So we can clearly see there is an F being made. So once you spot that F, mark the angles on the top. These are also equal, and the interior bottom angles of the F are also equal. So once you spot the angle, the letter F in a parallel line system, all you have to do is you have to spot the angles above and below the horizontal lines of the F, and those angles are equal. The official name for F angles is corresponding angles. These are called corresponding angles. So F angles are corresponding angles, and of course F can be made in the other directions as well. So for instance, we can also spot an F over here, and just like before, this angle will be equal to this angle, and the lower angle will be equal to the lower angle over here, and these are called corresponding angles. Now, before I move on, it is really important to know that all these three angles, the Z angles, which are alternate angles, C angles, which are supplementary angles, and F angles, which are corresponding angles, they are only available if you have a pair of parallel lines. If you do not have parallel lines, none of these shapes would exist. So just because you can see a shape which looks like an F or a C or a Z does not imply that those angles are responding to these properties. These are only available if you have a pair of parallel lines. Now we have a last property which is quite easy. These are called X angles, and this is pretty straightforward, and this is by far the easiest one that our students get. Is whenever two lines cross each other and they make an X shape, the opposite angles are always equal. The opposite angles are always equal to each other, and the name for X angles, the official name, is also vertically opposite angles. Vertically opposite angles. So these are the four main properties that are a bread and butter for your any geometrical problem that you guys need at an O levels or GCSE levels for mathematics. So these are four properties. Just a quick review. Number one are the Z angles. These are alternate angles. These will make a Z shape in parallel lines, and these will always be equal. And then you have C angles. C angles are the interior angles of a C shape in a parallel line system, and they would always add up to be 180. And then you have F angles. F angles are again in a parallel line system, and they will make an F shape, and these are also equal to each other. These are called corresponding angles. The last ones are not a part of parallel line system. They are always available whenever you have any two lines crossing each other, whether in a parallel line system or not in a parallel line system. These are vertically opposite angles. So whenever you have an X shape with two straight lines, their opposite angles are always going to be equal. So this is how easy these angles are to remember. These are the four main angles that I want you guys to remember, and these will be really useful in your exams. If you enjoyed this video, please like this and comment below. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and share it with your friends. Tell us what you thought about this video and how it helped you. I'll see you in the next video. Thank you. Allah Hafiz.